Howdy, kids. How's everyone doing today? Bob Harris here. You know me from Football Diehards. It's a website. You should go there, check everything out. Lots of news and happenings there to keep you on top of the fantasy world. And I'm here to add to that a little bit. We can run through some of the issues of the day as I get situated here. There are issues, as you well know. There's no Aaron Rodgers this week, no Derrick Henry this week. Odell Beckham's been released, so lots to chew on beyond that. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins. We're waiting for word on Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, among others. So lots of interesting things going on, and I see the questions are already going. If you're just joining me for the first time, I see many of you are regulars, and I like that. But go ahead and hit the subscribe button, notification button. We do this every Saturday at noon. We also have other video content on this YouTube channel, including a ton of DFS stuff that's really helpful. Jamie Calandro and Jason Brady, Emil Cadlick, John Lobb, all taking their shots at helping you set lineups, and plenty of stuff at the website. And if you haven't signed up for the website either, go to footballdiehards.com. Use the promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount. And also hear me as Mahesh. I hope I said your name right. I don't like to butcher the names. You can hear me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports and NFL Radio, both channels today, 2 shows today. So let's jump in. I see the questions building. I see a small queue lining up to watch. So let's get going. Good morning, Rick. All right, Scott, how you doing, man? Tua or Tannehill? So I think the rankings would say Tua would say Tannehill. I'm probably going to go Tua with the matchup. I think that's a pretty reasonable play for me this week. He's had some upside. He'll be without Devontae Parker. But Tannehill, I mean, you wonder how this offense is going to work. I think that's the big question for me. It's based on massive efficiency and play action. Is it all going to work the same without Derrick Henry? And with A.J. Brown dinged up, I think A.J. Brown will play. The questionable designation, maybe a little bit of a little surprise, a little surprising for everybody. But I don't know. I haven't seen anyone have huge concerns about it. So I'm gonna play Tua. Let me just double check and see how far apart we are in the rankings, because I like to do that. At footballdiehards.com, we have our staff rankings, and actually the rankings are with me. We have Tua 13, Tannehill 14, so it's that close. I really think that we've seen some upside in Gesicki. It's a great matchup. Look, it's the Houston Texans. I think that's what we're interested in here, right? So there we go. So I'll go with that. Let's see. If Elijah Mitchell can't play Sunday afternoon, would you play Jeff Wilson if available, or wait to play Herbert on Monday night? I'd probably wait to play Herbert on Monday night. I know there's possible David Montgomery will be back. They say David Montgomery would jump right back in as a starter if that's the case, but Herbert would still have a role. I'm just avoiding the 0. If Jeff Wilson was active and Elijah Mitchell wasn't, I mean, I suppose that's not that crazy a move. I'd like to see a week of it. I'm hoping Mitchell is ready to go. But you're not going to know until the afternoon kickoff, and Herbert is a viable fallback. I think no matter what, even if there is Montgomery, I think we'll see him get some run. So that would be my direction. It's a tough situation, Kevin. Scott, do I have any wide receivers that could be good on the level of a Bryan Edwards? Of course. I mean, there's a ton of them, Scott. You always ask these questions that I'm never prepared for, because I'm sitting here working on players that are playing, and I mean, there's a ton of players on that level. I mean, Hunter Renfro's on that level. Maybe Zay Jones emerges on that level on that very team. I think. Yes, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and spend the whole day looking at my rankings, scouring for players. You're a subscriber to the site. Feel free. I mean, there's tons of good matchups though out there. Like if you're looking for I would prey on the matchups, right? Miami. If you want to go down to the KJ Osborne level, there's tons of guys out there, Scott. It's just a little broader question that I'm thinking about at this moment. Let's see. Tyson Hill starting this week. Taysom Hill. No, Taysom Hill is not. It's going to be Trevor Siemian starting for the Saints. And we may see some Taysom Hill. He's cleared, but I think they like what they did last week. I think it'll be a week-to-week decision if you're looking at this going forward. And, I mean, they have a little more experience with Taysom Hill. You wonder if Trevor Siemian doesn't have one bad game. You know, I mean, he's had one good game, right? If he comes in and has one bad game, is that the last we see of him? Maybe so. So I would avoid him this week, but I wouldn't let go of Taysom Hill. PPR leagues, would you start Emmanuel Sanders or Judy? And would you go Higbee or Goddard at tight end? I'd probably go Goddard at tight end. I think both are great plays. That one's pretty close. It's just been a ton of targets for Goddard. So that would be my direction, just banking on the targets. I'm a little worried about the passing attack for Philly this week. I'm less worried about the other side of the equation against Tennessee, obviously. And maybe if Robert Woods, I knew in advance that Robert Woods was going to be out, maybe we get some news overnight. His list is questionable. Everyone says he's going to play, but it was like the same situation as Matthew Stafford. So Stafford came in, didn't practice all week and avoided an injury designation. Sean McVay said all along that both those guys are going to play. Well, neither of them practiced. Stafford avoids designation and Woods gets a questionable designation. I think that makes it a little tricky. So if I knew for sure Woods wasn't going to play, I'd be more interested. And it's a pretty shallow receiving core anyway. Tutu Atwell's out. Deshaun Jackson's gone. So yeah, I mean, it's close. I'm playing Goddard though for the volume, and Sanders for me over Judy. It's not the worst matchup for Judy, but it's not the best either. It's a good matchup for everybody in Buffalo, and we'll see. Cole Beasley listed as questionable. Maybe he doesn't play. Kevin O'Brien, if CeeDee Lamb does not play, is Cedric Wilson a good option versus Sutton or Bateman also? I'd probably still play Sutton myself, but I mean, I think Wilson becomes viable if CeeDee Lamb doesn't play. The early reporting is that, he seems to be that it's a minor sprain, but it's an early kickoff and you'll have some room. You obviously have pivots within, reasonable pivots. So that would be I would probably still rather play Sutton this one. Kevin O'Brien, I got that one. All right. Iron Eddie, full PPR, need 2. Van Jefferson, Jacoby, Devonta Smith, Ayuk if Debo is out. I mean, Ayuk is I'm so totally invested in him and totally disappointed like everyone else. So, the targets have increased a little bit and the workload seems to be increased. The trust level maybe is increasing a little bit. Not the level I'd like to play him. I'd probably go Van Jefferson in this one. I mean, Jacoby gives you the floor, right? I guess that's the thing. I'm avoiding Smith. It's a tough matchup for him, tough individual matchup for him. And this passing attack, the Philadelphia offense, it's been great for Jalen Hurts. His fantasy value has not been great from an NFL perspective or for the receiver's perspective. So I'd probably avoid that. Pretty tough coverage. So I'd probably go Jacoby Myers for the high floor. And if you want a little upside or a little potential upside, Van Jefferson. It's a great matchup. The Rams are down receivers, as I mentioned before. There's no Tutu Atwell, no Deshaun Jackson. So it's kind of a 3-man rotation. And if anything's, if Robert Woods is not full speed, it's kind of a lesser rotation. PJ Walker or Big Ben? I'm probably playing Big Ben. Bears defense, not good. I don't think I need to take my chances of PJ Walker. I'm sure the Patriots have something cooked up in case it is him. And we don't know that it'll be him yet. So Sam Darnold could still be cleared. We may find that out while I'm talking, right? They're going to practice today, the Panthers, and we'll see if both McCaffrey and Darnold may get cleared and McCaffrey activated and Darnold cleared. So we'll know that soon enough. Either way, even if PJ Walker's starting, I'm not playing him over Big Ben this week. Mahesh, worried about Debo won't play. Which of these should I pick from the waiver wire? I'd probably pick up Galladay at the moment, right? I mean, it looks like he's going to play. He is listed as questionable, so that's a little bit dicey there as well. Agnew, I think is, has been the most, is emerging as the most targeted receiver, it seems. And, lots of speed, a big play threat. It's a tough matchup against the Bills. I'm kind of avoiding the Jaguars to the degree possible. I could play Ayuk or Gage. Gage didn't have a target last week. I think that's kind of an outlier. I think you'll see him get more. Also, it's the Saints, so it's a pretty tough matchup. So I'd probably be leaning towards Galladay and just taking a chance. But again, it's a bit of a chance, right? What time is that kickoff? I have to check. I think that's an early afternoon kickoff. So that's an early afternoon. You know for sure that he's active and ready to go. I'd probably give that a shot and hope for some upside there. And just double checking the kickoff time. Yes, it's an early afternoon kickoff. So you'd have some fallback plans, or you'd have time to change your fallback plans. I'm assuming you can make moves as needed. Full PPR, Edmonds or Herbert probably would. Yeah, so this is the thing about Monday night games. We don't know. We don't know if we won't know until Monday if David Montgomery is activated. Maybe we hear some reporting today or get some reporting overnight that it's not going to happen. I'd feel really good playing Herbert, certainly in this circumstance. But I could play Chase Edmonds. So if we don't have any clarity, I'd probably go Chase Edmonds at that point. Rest of the season PPR, Bateman or Van Jefferson? Bateman for the rest of the season. We'll see if he plays this week, and hopefully this is not a serious issue. John Harbaugh downplayed it, and if you're have to make that decision today, maybe that's part of it. The groin issue, he's questionable. He had the surgery earlier this, late this summer, so it's a little additional concern to me. But if I get an idea, especially if he plays this week, I think that would be my choice going forward. I'd start Cousins over Tannehill. Baltimore's defense, this is not your father's Baltimore defense. They're just not as good right now, right? So I feel fine playing him. Cousins has been really good until last week. It's like a 16-game stretch of really solid games, capable of throwing multiple touchdowns, has great weapons. Marlon Humphrey's coming off a bad game for Baltimore. Maybe he rebounds, but I don't expect to see Justin Jefferson shut down 2 weeks in a row. And Adam Thielen's there if he is, and Tyler Conklin. The tight ends have made hay against Baltimore so far this season. Granted, a couple of them have been pretty high-end tight ends, but even some of the outlier tight ends have fared well. So that's the direction I'd go. Hi, Paul. Hurt by bye weeks and don't want to start A-Rob at all costs. Better. Peoples-Jones, Zay Jones, Freeman, or Traquan Smith. Probably Traquan Smith would be the way I lean, but Zay Jones is kind of appealing. Freeman, I might be not reading this right. I thought you were looking for a wide receiver. The only one that comes to mind is a running back. So help me out there if I'm not thinking. Sometimes in the moment, it's hard to think quick on my feet like this, even though I think I'm pretty good at it. I can't think of that name. In a point per completion league, would you go Tua, Big Ben, or Teddy Bridgewater? Points per. I like Tua in this matchup an awful lot, probably over those other two. That would be my choice. Hi, Andrea. Courtless, Sutton, or Jarvis, Landry? I'd probably go Court and Sutton and hope he can stomp the K-Puck out of maybe slightly limping Trayvon Diggs. I mean, I'm expecting more targets, right? The mandate in Denver this week is score more points. The general manager has put Pat Shurmur on notice. And I know it's not all on Pat Shurmur. They need to get off to faster starts. If you look at last week, it was like a weird week to me. 19 completions for Teddy Bridgewater, no more than 4 targets for any receiver. It was like kind of limited to 3 and 4 targets. So that's I'd probably go in that direction if it was me. Landry, and by the way, just the mess in Cleveland, I don't know that really bumps Landry up any. I mean, maybe some of the other pieces. I think Landry remains kind of what Landry's been. So he's a solid floor player. So if that's what you're more interested, maybe that's the better play. I'm looking for a little upside. I'm probably still playing Courtland Sutton. I expect a rebound game, Andrea. Broncos trade Amari McKissick for Terry. I'm guessing that's Terry McLaurin. If so, yes. Well, so you're trading away Amari and McKissick to get Terry McLaurin. I don't know. So if you're never playing McKissick, I suppose that's viable. It hasn't been great for McLaurin if that's who we're talking about. So you'd have to drop McKissick anyway. So, yeah, I think that's not unreasonable. It hasn't been great for McLaurin, though. So, keep that in mind. Go back and look at the recent week's games. It just, he has the high end, he has the potential, and I think he'll be good over the rest of the year. But just in recent weeks, the the overall output hasn't been great. It's been a little better for Cooper. So keep that in mind. But yeah, if you got to release McKissick anyway, he's a throwaway piece. That's a great kind of trade to make. In a point per completion league, would you go Tua, Big Ben, or Teddy Bridgewater? PPC soaring and all 6 months season. Okay, that's PPC. So I hit that one too. Okay, I'm scrolling down. I'm looking for the last question. This is going well today. I feel like I'm probably still asleep. Coffee. Khalil Herbert, Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman, Gallup if active, and no Lamb, or Jacoby. So, I mean, I want to play Khalil Herbert here, obviously, and I'm probably just going to take my chance on Montgomery. I'm going to hope I get some news on Montgomery, right? And assume, in the meantime, I mean, Rondale Moore maybe gets a little run if there is no DeAndre Hopkins, and it sounds like it's trending that direction. And also, there may not be Kyler Murray. Seems like it might be trending in that direction if you're reading the tea leaves. So, a better role, maybe not a better quarterback. Bateman, questionable. So that's a little dicey, but you'll know in advance. So, I mean, if he's playing, maybe that's the direction to go. And Gallup, I mean, again, he'll be the third receiver if he's active. And if there is no Lamb, that would be probably ideal. That's a lot of moving pieces, Iron Eddie. I'm probably going Khalil Herbert and keeping it simple, but I don't want to oversimplify because I realize Montgomery's coming back. But I haven't got any firm indication of that. So that'd be the direction I go. It's sad that it's a Monday night game. And you won't know about, Murray and Hopkins until the late afternoon kickoff. So, maybe if you're just looking to play it safe, Bateman, if he's active, might be the safe play. Gaskin or Damian Harris in a PPR? Man, that's a fantastic matchup for Gaskin, right? I kind of like him a little bit, but I'm still playing Damian Harris. Hi, Dominic. Good morning, Bob. Full PPR, Boyd, Van Jefferson, Pollard. I need 2 of them. It just seems like Zeke's role is becoming a little more robust. The touches have been there for him. And I mean, I don't think that precludes Pollard from getting the similar touch level to what we've seen from Boyd, right? So, last week was decent for Boyd. It wasn't great. I feel like Van Jefferson's almost a little hunchy, but it's a super good matchup for the Rams, and maybe that's the direction I'm going to go. Scott wants to know Herbert or Stafford. Man, I like the matchup for Stafford. I think I can't get away from that. I'll probably go in that direction. And, it's Herbert, a couple lousy showings, or not lousy, but a couple less than expected showings. Scott, maybe it's, maybe give him a chance to get right before I play it since I have the option to Stafford. And, if there's worries about the back, I mean, and I don't think they're illegitimate if there are worries. I mean, he didn't practice all week, right? So McVay said all the right things. So if that's a concern, I mean, they're both well within the top 10, but Stafford's certainly higher, and it's a super good matchup if he has any weapons. And I think he'll have enough. One of them is going to be Cooper Kupp, and that's fantastic. Iron Eddie, TD League, better chance that if a TD, AP or Herbert. Well, I mean, this is going to depend. It's going to depend on, David Montgomery, and I'm not going to know that until Monday, and you're not going to know that till Monday. As things stand right now, it's Khalil Herbert, I think. The Rams defense is still pretty tough. So Adrian Peterson, talk about this for just a second. 36 years old, comes in cold to an offense. I think, they'll make some use of him. I think they'll make some use of Jeremy McNichols. Running backs is a position where you can catch a little lightning in a bottle, right? So, I get the desire, but I'm probably not forcing Peterson into lineups. And maybe I miss out on a decent showing because of it. I just like to understand what the role is and see the starting point before I'm playing it. But also you have the layer of not knowing about David Montgomery. And I just don't know about David Montgomery. The talk is, they're obviously keeping it vague for a reason. And Matt Nagy has said if he's active, he moves right back in the starting role. So that's the obvious concern there. Herbert has obviously earned more time. But, easy to forget, Montgomery has been really good dating back to last year. So This is a true conundrum. I'd probably bet on Herbert at the moment if I had to bet. But that's kind of where I'm at. If you feel better about Peterson's workload, and I have a couple articles up talking about it on the website, footballdiehards.com. If you haven't been there, go there. There's all kinds of stuff up there, including tons of news and kind of assessments of these kind of situations. A lot of it is what I'm talking about now. But in this case, I mean, it's a bit of a mystery with Peterson for me. I wonder, he's always in good shape. I'm sure he's like in great shape, but is he in really game shape? Also, if you look back over his history, he's one of those guys that comes in cold and has really good games and then needs a break, right? Like he just overdoes it, and then they dial him back a week, then they ramp him back up another week, then dial him back a week. So, maybe without knowing about, I'm almost talking myself into AP, and I hate that. So that's where we're at, Iron Eddie. I mean, I could probably I could tell myself a happy story about either of these guys. Steve Linder, PPR with Debo being questionable in a later game. If MVS is playing, would you suggest him or Lazard as a fallback plan? So it's a really great matchup for the Packers. As we know, Jordan Love will be starting, and Devontae Adams is back. MVS, it's his first game back. So, do I feel really confident in that? And what his role might be? Has he gotten a lot of work in, with anybody? He's been out for 3 weeks. So he's been practicing for 2 weeks, though. And I'm sure he's gotten plenty of practice time in with Jordan Love at this point this week. I might lean Lazard, but also he was out last week as well. So as just to stipulate there, I realize this. So I'm probably leaning Lazard. Wouldn't talk you out of either of them. It's a great matchup. And I do think they're good fallback plans. Should I play Dallas Goedert over Kittle, PPR? They say, Andrea, if Kittle is back, and we'll know at some point today. They said they were going to activate him. I'm going to take them at their word, so we'll assume for this purposes that he is. You'll have to check it, though, and make sure they activate him. I'll have it up on the site when they do. So watch for that. Was it great for Kittle before? I'm probably going with Goddard just because he's been getting so many targets. And just wait and see on Kittle. If I have that option open to me, maybe I see where the workload lands for him. If there was no Deebo Samuel, that makes it a little more interesting, though, right? So I get that. I don't think there is a wrong answer for you, Andrea. That would be one point. Eli Mitchell or Hyde if Robinson doesn't go. So I think Eli Mitchell's a late afternoon kickoff. The Jags are an early afternoon kickoff, so it's a bit of a conundrum. So, it's not a great matchup. I'd rather not play Hyde or Robinson. I'd rather play Mitchell over either of them, whichever one starts and is healthy enough. And we know with Robinson, it's kind of going to be a pain management issue either way, whether he starts or plays and keeps playing. But it's just the Bills' defense is pretty tough. I'd rather play Eli Mitchell. But you'd need a late afternoon fallback in case Mitchell can't go. So keep that in mind, Bradley. Should I be scared as a CMC owner for the rest of the season? I'm heavily invested, or, as heavily invested as I can be, because you only get him if you get the first pick. I'm in a lot of leagues, so I got some first picks, and I have some shares of him. So I'm not really nervous or worried about him. I like the way they're managing him. Once the situation has happened, they're obviously taking a pretty cautious approach. And, so I like the fact that we've had some clarity on his playing status. There hasn't been a lot of mystery going into games. And look, if they're going to slow roll him and make sure he's fully healthy, I'm on board with that. Clearly, this team wants to run the football going forward. And so once CMC's back, I'm expecting really, the normal workload, and I think he'll be fine. So, no, don't be scared, but be aware, and you are. I think that's a fair point. Traded Dalvin Cook and Jamar Chase for Austin Eckler and Justin Jefferson. I think you got maybe a little more upside on Eckler and a little less on Justin Jefferson, but, a bunch of good players. So, I'm not totally against that. I think, the running back situation, you maybe upgraded, you spent more draft capital to get Dalvin Cook almost certainly in most leagues. And you're going to get a little more production. I think Austin Eckler has been a safe play. So love Jamar Chase as well. And Justin Jefferson is going to have big games, but Chase is just on a historic pace. He would have to slow down crazily to make this not worth your while. Would I play Jay Cook at tight end over Hire or Schultz this week? Maybe you think Higbee. Maybe you're thinking Higbee. I would consider it, right? I mean, it's a good for all the receivers. The wideouts, Darius Slay is going to be a tough matchup for Mike Williams. Beyond that, Keenan Allen has a little clearer path. Jared Cook has a fairly clear path. I mean, pretty good matchup. I don't know if we're outsmarting stuff. I will say Schultz has not been as good, the last couple of weeks. Maybe that changes with the beat-up receivers. So wouldn't talk you out of Cook. I'd probably go Schultz, Higbee, and then Cook, just based on their roles in the offense. But I wouldn't talk you out of Cook at all. I think he's not a bad play. It's tight end. They all seem so bunched up. If CeeDee Lamb doesn't go, who could I start? Bradley wants to know. Judy, Khalil Herbert, E. Sanders, Melvin Gordon, or Javonte in a PPR. I would probably start one of the Denver running backs, the one you choose. I keep wanting to think that, Javonte Williams is going to get some run and start taking advantage of his fresher, younger legs. The Denver Broncos think otherwise, and Melvin Gordon thinks otherwise, right? It was a good game for him last week, 2 touchdowns. I was pretty impressed. I'm also impressed, though, when I watch Williams, just eyeball test. I think he's a really good back. So I'd love to see him do well. I'm heavily invested, so maybe that's part of it as well. So I would pick one of them, all right? So, Judy is going to be fine. You wonder about the pass attack. It's fairly tough individual matchups there. And Herbert, this would be an easy answer. It would be Herbert for sure if I knew Montgomery was in or not, right? So maybe you hold tight, and maybe we get some definitive word. Like, we've heard from Andy Reid, Clyde Edwards-Helaire won't come back this week, right? So maybe we get some definitive word today or early overnight or early tomorrow on David Montgomery. I'd watch for that. If there is no Montgomery, or we have a good feeling, Bradley, if there is no Montgomery, easy call on Herbert. After that, it'd be pick your poison, Gordon or Javonte Williams. And look, Sanders should probably be in this conversation just based on the matchup alone. And if you've got cold feet on those 2 running backs for Denver, and we don't have clarity on Herbert, and you get up tomorrow and say, oh, wow, look, Cole Beasley's inactive, that makes a little easier call on Sanders. If James Robinson out, Carlos Hyde or Javonte Williams, I'm going Javonte Williams, Umberto. Tough matchup, maybe Hyde. And I do think if Hyde is playing, I mean, you're going to see some Dario Ogunbowale. You're going to see some Divino Zigbo in there maybe mixing in. I don't know that he'll get the same kind of workload that a healthy James Robinson would get. And even then, it's a super tough matchup. So probably going the other way on that one. Ayuk or Van Jefferson, PPR if Debo sits. I'm probably still going Van Jefferson, even if Debo's sitting. I do think, maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a gain by Ayuk. I don't know if I'm ready to play it yet, though. Scott. Okay. So any word on Debo? I read in the Diehards that he practiced 2 days in a row. Yeah, it seems like it is worse. It was limited 2 days in a row. And honestly, Scott, Friday, none of the local observers thought he was practicing. They saw him on the bike during warm-ups. He wasn't doing anything with the rest of the team. So when they listed him as limited, we don't really know what he did because they closed the practice. I'm a little concerned on him. It seems the things Shanahan's saying, you read them, it seems a little bit dicey. So, but if he's up and playing, I'm probably going to play him still. I mean, the upside has been too great. So, but it's definitely something we're going to have to watch. And as you know, as a regular reader at the site, we'll get some reporting overnight, some that gives us a vague idea what direction that's going, almost without fail on all the top players. We'll get that. So watch for that as well. I'll be looking for it and make a point of getting something up overnight. That's the footballdiehards.com website, people. It's fantastic. You should go there. If you're not a subscriber, you should subscribe. And when you do, use the promo code Diehards to get 15% off. Got great stuff up there from myself, some great DFS content every week, including lineup optimizers, ownership percentages, a lot of material for you to research, as well as some great content from Jamie Calandro, from Jason Brady, from Justin Lanero, from myself, from Gary Davenport, from John Lobb, the scholar, diving in. So no shortage of DFS content. And early in the week when you go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have all our free agent content with Joe Kalana, Matthew Sharon, Evan Tarchiano does the waiver wire wizard is great. And also check out Drew Phelps' prop bets, best prop bets for each series of games. That gives you a little helpful fantasy insight as well. So check all that out at Football Diehards. And the Casey Joyner and Brad Cruz doing the Saturday and Sunday, kind of last minute start sit issues. Casey Joyner does an injury report that'll kind of touch a little deeper than just the skill players. That'll look at some of the defensive matchups and offensive line injuries and issues like that. They'll have your impact, and he does a sit start based on that. The football scientist, Casey Joyner, he's fantastic. Brock Goose, Cortland, or either Higgins or Waddle. T. Higgins, I'm guessing. I have Rashad Higgins on my mind because I've been writing a bunch about the Browns. But I did write something about T. Higgins. It'll be coming out later today, and the workload has been good, right? So I'm not against T. Higgins in this case. I'm probably going to go Courtland Sutton and hope for a rebound even in a at least throw the ball more. They were not throwing as last week. Looks like the YouTube has died. There it is. Look, I think Sutton has a ton of upside, but we've seen the range of, the range, right? Last week was the low end of the range, and it was not very appealing, so I get it. I'm probably still playing Courtland Sutton, but I wouldn't talk you out of Higgins. Brock Goose, also trade Godwin before he comes back. Yeah, just get good return on him. I mean, I think all these receivers are going to be good, but that's kind of that's a smooth move there, Brock, if that's what you want to do. And I don't disagree with it. Just make sure you get good return on it. Coming off a huge game, AB is going to dilute it a little bit. So yeah, I'm on board with that. Guillotine League. I wish I had lasted longer in mine. PPR, need 2 in the flex. Gaskin and Tony. Mitchell. I'd probably go with the early options and play it safe, unless we get something maybe fairly definitive on Mitchell, and that's possible, right? So, I don't want to totally preclude that. I'd love to play Mitchell if I could, and I'd love to play Herbert if I could. I just don't know if we'll have the clarity in advance. That being the case, Gaskin at least has a good matchup. And if you look, the numbers, the workload has increased a little bit, right? It's starting to turn back into last year's workload. And that's sufficient, right? So I play that in this matchup and just playing it safe, right? It's a guillotine. You're just trying not to get cut. I'm hoping you have some, trying to avoid zeros, right? And I'm sure you have a pretty good roster if you've lasted this long. So, yeah. Okay, Steve, last one for you this week. Have you played Stat Hero at all? I have not. Why have I not played that? Because probably I'm in 30 leagues. I'm up against KC offense. Which offense would you take this week to play them? Thanks again. So help me out a little bit with this, Steve. You're just taking an offense and need one to outproduce them? Let me know before you go so I can kind of have a better feel. I don't want to say something stupid or stupider than I was already going to say. M. Terra, been rolling with Tannehill since Russ got hurt, but Cousins just got dropped. I'd swap him out for this one. Yep. With both starting cornerbacks out for the Chargers, does Hurts become a better play this week? Look, I think Hurts is a good play every week. I think the only concern, just the rushing floor, Scott. So, yes, I think that does help, right? The issues in the secondary. So, not against that. Also, I don't expect huge passing numbers, right? The offense hasn't been working. And I guess my concern with Hurts in general is not like a minute by minute thing, but at some point, if they're not winning games, I think they're going to look for a spark. And the word out of Philadelphia is they don't view Hurts as a good fit for what Nick Sirianni wants to do. Maybe they should have thought of that before they hired Nick Sirianni. I don't know. It hasn't been great for him either. So yeah, it's a tough call, Scott. I do think it gives him a little ground, but I think he's a playable commodity no matter what, right? His numbers have been great. Thanks to that high rushing floor, except for, not as great last week as we've seen. But it had been really great. JM, I have Cook and Madison plus Swift and Jamal. What is your take here? Wasted roster spots, solid plan. Solid plan with Cook. Not so much with Jamal. It's just not been as great an offense. Contest leading between John, Jamie, and Bob, 3 and out, and having a really good year. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Also, Scott wins because Scott is a great player, a super successful high-stakes player who puts the rest of us certainly be to shame on that end. How are you viewing the Packers this week with Jordan Love? Quarterback, do you see a heavy Aaron Jones? That's, like that's my gut instinct, Scott, is, and we've seen this playing out over the course of recent weeks, right? Except for the Washington game, they seem to be ramping up A.J. Dillon and working the rushing game a little more than we've seen in the past. I think that is their desired plan, but this is an exploitable defense, right? They're in the bottom 10 in pretty much every category of everything. He has Devontae Adams, right? He can make some hay. Adams has been successful, by the way. Have an article up on the site that kind of outlines it. But, in the season when Aaron Rodgers had the broken collarbone, Devontae Adams fared pretty well in the stretch he was absent. So, and it's possible Jordan Love is what they drafted him, is what they thought they got when they drafted him. We'll see. It's a great matchup, though, and I think for that reason alone, I wouldn't totally dismiss them. My expectation is more Jones and more Dillon, though. It makes perfect sense to me. And we have seen it prior to this week. We saw it against Arizona. And I thought that was a good play for them as well. Obviously worked out. And before the Washington game, they were really ramping it up. Dominic Contif. Hi, Dominic. McCaffrey is active. I want to play him, but I would have to bench one of these guys, Boyd Pollard or Van Jefferson. I would bench Pollard in a second if McCaffrey is active. And I haven't heard, maybe you've heard in the last little while, it hadn't happened before I started this. They were going to practice today and see how he felt before they decided to activate him, and maybe they have. I'm watching right now. I'm looking at my notifications. I don't see that's – let's see. Yeah, I have not seen it that it's happened yet. So if it does happen, and we'll know at some point whether I don't know and you do or not, it's going to happen. So or not. So – watch for that. If McCaffrey's playing, I'm playing him. And I think they will mix it up a little bit. I don't think they'll overdo it with him. I think we'll see some Chuba Hubbard and maybe less Amir Abdullah and maybe not so much Royce Freeman. But they'll mix it up a little bit, and I hope they don't push him too hard. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, but I would play the leading portion of that offense over Pollard and keep Boyd and Jefferson in. Ayuk or Judy if Debo sits? Probably going to play Judy. I want to see more from Ayuk. I am optimistic based on what I've seen the last couple of weeks, but we'd like to see more. Evan Harrison, and it may be a mystery, but do we even know a time frame for Calvin Ridley? He was dropped in your league. So at least 3 weeks. They placed him on the non-football injury list yesterday, so that's at least 3 games he will have to miss. And we don't know if it'll go beyond that. So it is a bit of a mystery. But we saw, we don't really know what the issue is, right? So I don't want to speculate too much. But we saw Lane Johnson leave for a little while and come back. He was dealing with anxiety, and he made it back for the Eagles. So I don't want to dismiss the possibility that he returns. So 3 games at least, that would be where I'm standing. If I had a room on my roster, and since he is on the non-football injury list, if you have an IR spot on your roster, you could hide him there. I would probably, I think it's worth a speculative play. If Lamb doesn't go, Jacoby Myers or Claypool in a PPR. I'm going Jacoby Myers. I want the floor. Claypool's not been great. Hasn't been happening that much. And I think, last week was one of his better weeks, and he was, wide receiver 36, 40, somewhere in that range. So there we have it. Yep, Stat Hero each week. I picked 5 players from one offense. Okay, I see. So I have heard about this. To face off against a team from Stat Hero. So this week they're using KC offense. Just pick the highest scoring offense each week. Yeah, so looking at the over-unders, I think that's there's a reason for that. Let me look at the games. Bills, I might go with the Bills in this one. I would probably be willing to go with the Vikings. Probably be willing to go with the Rams. So there you have it. Sorry, Tony, not Claypool. That makes it harder. I might go Tony in that one. He's got a little wiggle to him, right? I wanted some of that upside. I'd like to see. It's such an exciting one game. I do think Jacoby Myers gives you a great floor and wouldn't talk you out of him. I wish he could score more, but it's been a great play. Evan Harrison, Jordan Love is most definitely no scrub. I don't think he has a Mike White debut, but a good showing. Yeah, I think Evan, that's kind of where I'm at. I think this might be better than we expect. It's just such an exploitable matchup. Melvin Ingram's arrival in Kansas City notwithstanding, and he'll play this week, but they just have been horrible on defense, right? So I'm kind of with you on that, Evan. I think this might not be as bad as we think, but also still, expecting them to go a little run heavy to protect him also makes sense. And that doesn't preclude, like Aaron Jones will be a factor in the receiving game. It's kind of almost like a part of the run game, those short passes to Aaron Jones. I mean, realize they're not handoffs, but I'm with you. Van Jefferson. Do you expect Kyler or D-Hop to play or be out this week? If you're making me take a stance right now, I feel like they're sending the signals they're not going to play. And, we talked about this a little offline, Scott, but, the gambling community is pretty sure they're not going to play. And then we heard Steve Keim, the GM, on the radio yesterday saying, kind of saying using the same kind of language we heard the Cowboys use when they talked about Dak Prescott last week, right? So if you saw that before the game last week, I skipped someone earlier. Damn it, I'll get you, Taryn. I do think, the Cowboys knew going in that probably Dak wasn't going to play. I think that was their plan, right? And he went out and went through warm-ups. I mean, which seems odd to me. Why risk aggravating it in warm-ups if you weren't going to play him? But it just looked like that was a decision that was pre-baked, right? And I almost starting to feel that with Murray. Maybe we catch a break today, Scott, and they don't make the trip, right? And I'm not sure what time the flight is or anything yet, but I'll be watching for that. So, but if I was betting right now, I would say they're not going to play. All right. Sorry for the skippage there, Taryn. PPR Flex Fight. Moss's great matchup. Or Tony as last man standing in New York this week. So Galladay's coming back. He's not the last man. It's Galladay. Maybe he still is the last man. I would probably take a shot on Tony. I guess this is your flex play. So, yeah. I mean, I do think, I think Moss is a pretty good – I think everyone playing against Jacksonville is a good play, right, every time. But, it's a pretty big mix. And we saw it last week, in a really good matchup against, Miami. The two running backs were outproduced by the quarterback on the ground. So that's always the concern for Buffalo, right, is the quarterback might take the juicy, meatier bits. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Rick, I know yuck, but if Kyler Murray is out and need an emergency quarterback between Simeon, Walker, or McCoy, which one do you go? Simeon. Just like the last 3 weeks, I'm starting Stafford over Mahomes. Do I agree? Yes, I do. Any idea of the seriousness of Bateman injury? No. Other than John Harbaugh said it's not as serious. So do we believe John Harbaugh? I mean, I don't have the quote right in the front of my mind. It's on the site. I wrote it up. But he kind of downplayed it Friday, right? And the thing about the Ravens is they're one of those teams where they're really they adhere strictly to the letter of the law, right? So the NFL, if players miss a certain portion of practice, they want them listed a certain way, right? It's questionable, no longer probable designations. I think of a lot of times on the Ravens, if there was still a probable designation, guys would be probable. But there isn't, so they're questionable. So I don't know the seriousness of it. I do think it is a concern, based on the surgery. So, the same issue, the groin issue. So watch that and play it safe. But I'm optimistic based on Harbaugh's one words. What's my philosophy on handcuffing your running backs for the playoffs to run at this time of year? If you can do it, that's a great thing. I wouldn't. So, but basically, it's the same as it is any other time of the year. I don't want to overpay. I'll pay, right? I'm not afraid to pay a good value. I just don't like to pay a super premium. And I think if you're trading or dealing with people, they're going to realize what you're up to, and they're going to charge you a premium. So maybe for the higher end players, yes. And also, not every handcuff is a true plug and play option. And that's also kind of a concern, right? Not everybody, gets the same exact role. Sometimes they'll chop it up, like Derrick Henry in Tennessee. Obviously it's going to be hard to find somebody who, to show up on a day's notice and take that robust a role, 20, 30, close to 30 touches a game. That Henry was getting, and they'll cobble it together. So, so that's part of the equation for me, Scott. Yes, I think it's a good idea as you go into the stretch. Also, yes, I don't want to overpay. Colt McCoy or Big Ben? I'll play Colt. I'll play Big Ben in this one. Scotty Boy. 1/2 PPR. Pick one, please. James Robinson, Zach Moss, or Agnew. I'll probably go Zach Moss in that one. Wouldn't talk you out of Agnew. If Robinson's playing, it's hard to just run away from him. But he's going in, he's dealing with, pain management issues. So, if he hits it's a heel. So, hopefully that decision is kind of made for you. If it is made for you, Zach Moss will be the play over Agnew, and I like Agnew. I just don't like this matchup for him. Adrian, do I start Jerry Jeudy, Julio Jones, Rondale Moore, Van Jefferson, full PPR? I'm interested in Julio only in as much as, maybe he's, they throw the ball a little more. I mean, I don't think he's a guy I want to be relying on, but neither are those other guys, right? It'd be, I mean, ideally I like them in the order you have them, the first two, then it'd be Van Jefferson, then Rondale Moore, even if there is no DeAndre Hopkins. Also, the concern would be there's no Kyler Murray, so I'd watch for that too. JM traded Henderson, Gordon, Khalil Herbert for Kelsey Sanders, Jamal Williams. Henderson. Well, if Travis Kelsey turns into Travis Kelsey, this might be a great deal for you. And I'm guessing that's Melvin Gordon. I think you overpaid, but a little bit, right? But if you were expecting Khalil Herbert to, cede the starting role back to David Montgomery, if not this week, then certainly soon. I don't think it's a horrible deal. How about that? I don't think it's a horrible deal. I'm not as keen on Jamal Williams. Honestly, it's not been great. He hasn't had as much role as a receiver as we saw to open the season. If maybe that rebounds a little bit, and look, it's possible. So maybe you come out okay. I like Sanders okay. I just think there's going to be hit or miss weeks. As we've seen the last couple of weeks, it can be hit or miss for him. How are the Cats? Cats are fantastic. Well behaved. Wishing they could go outside more in the new territory and working their way into a better relationship with the dog they've moved in with. The dog is willing. The Cats are just a little skittish. Damn them. Tannehill or Daniel Jones? I'm probably going to play Dan. I was combining them, Scott. How about that? I'm pretty sure I'm going to play. I'm pretty sure I'm going to play Tannehill here. But man, both. So I'm not like against Jones. I kind of tend to lean towards him. Probably slightly into Tannehill here. And part of this would be I want A.J. Brown to be there, and I'm guessing he will be, but a little bit of a guess. So we'll watch this. This is a tough one, Scott, honestly. I want to say Tannehill, and some of that depends on A.J. Brown's availability. It's a tough matchup for him. I think an easier matchup for Jones, especially with Vegas traveling to the East. So, that may be a factor, but the Ravens can get after the passer, man, and cause some issues. So that's a little concern for me with Daniel Jones in that offensive line. So Tannehill's the answer, but I don't know if there's a wrong one. Would I drop Rondale for OBJ and the potential upside of his landing spot? Yes. I mean, Rondale's fine, and he'll make big plays at times. Maybe he is actually OBJ. They'll both make plays at times, but yeah, potential. Somebody whoever lands him is going to at least want OBJ. So that's a starting point. And not that the Cardinals don't want Rondale Moore. He's just far down the pecking order. He's the fourth guy, and that means there's at wide receiver. And with the addition of Zach Ertz, I think that kind of adds a little dynamic too. He's been very busy as well. So, and there were some mistakes last week. The muff punt was not good. So yes, I would. If there is no Kyler, do you still think Edmonds plays more than Connor, or do they go Connor more? I think they may, even if they keep it a pretty reasonable split. I like Connor a lot this week in this matchup in particular, and maybe especially a little bit more if it's Colt McCoy. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I see where you're going with this, and I'm not disagreeing. I think it might be a little more Connor to me. That seems to make sense. Dominic wants to know full PPR Boyd or Van Jefferson. I'll probably take a shot on Van Jefferson. It's like the third guy in some really super good offenses. So I like both of them a little bit. Maybe just a slight lean to Jefferson based on matchups. Top three cheeses. I don't like cheese that much. Mozzarella, Parmesan. Yes, I like these a little bit. And Asiago. I don't know. I'm making that last one up because I only really like two cheeses. I don't know. There's some like Mexican cheeses that I like a little bit. And some goat cheeses that are okay. That's a good question, JM. I have to think about that. Like, not normally a cheesy person, right? Don't do a ton of dairy. All right. got time for a few more. In the meantime, I will tell you, if you like to hear on listen to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio or SiriusXM Radio, you can hear me, Bob Harris, Monday and Thursday nights, 10 p.m., along with Mike Dempsey on the Fantasy Channel. You can hear me every other Tuesday with Michael Fabiano on the Fantasy Channel, Fantasy Dirt Show. You can hear me Saturday at, I got to look at the times, 5 to 7 on the Fantasy Channel, me and Mike Dempsey. Today's guest will be Eric Moody from ESPN. Then you can hear me again from 7 to 10 on NFL Radio. Jamie Calandro from Football Diehards will join me to talk DFS, and we'll have a game of the week. We'll have some local beat writers covering that, and we'll also have Chris Allen from 4 for 4 and other sites, great analyst on for a big spot. And we'll take your calls on both those, so if you have more questions, I'll be there for you as well. And hit the website. It's footballdiehards.com. When you go there and you sign up, if you're not signed up, you get a 15% discount if you use the promo code Diehards. Tons of great content, tons of great technology and tools for you to use, whether you're making trades, setting DFS lineups, the optimizers, fantastic. The DFS ownership percentages, fantastic. Tons of stats, red zones, targets, snap counts, all the things you need to help you set fantastic lineups, including fantasy points against, a little tool to help you search and find the most favorable matchups. So tons of content there. PPR, Tim Patrick or Kenneth Gainwell? I'll take my shots on Gainwell in this one. And I'm not like an enthusiastic Gainwell endorser. What are my thoughts on the Browns receivers this week, and does David Njoku have a role? So, being one of 3 tight ends is never a good situation because they all play. But we've seen Njoku has massive upside. I just don't know how repeatable it is. What we saw in the Arizona game, big play, good on him. But it's kind of like designed for those guys to do shorter work. So in general, Jarvis Landry remains Jarvis Landry, and then it's going to be on somebody else to step up. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones looks like a guy who could do that. If I was making a speculative play, I might make that play. Rashad Higgins, we've seen him be fine at times, but it's he's never really risen to the occasion. He just kind of been a spot performer. Anthony Schwartz has all the speed in the world. As a rookie, I'm not sure I have a lot of faith in him either. I'm probably saying Peoples-Jones is my first option, and we'll go from there. Not Landry. Landry's first option because I think his role is pretty repeatable. And I have a few more minutes if you have a few more questions. If you don't, we can go through anything you'd like. The cheese question was fantastic. I had to think about that one almost as much as I had to think about Scott Kobe's wide receivers. I'll take a second look at those. Let's see. Looking at wide receivers in the Bryan Edwards range. I liked Osborne. I think Jamal Agnew in that range is pretty well. Quez Watkins, not as keen on. Tajay Sharp, are we digging that deep, Scott? Lazard, Traquan Smith. I think all those guys are fine plays. I don't want to go down to Deontay Harris level. I think we've plumbed the depths. Let's see. M. Terran. Do we really think the Seahawks will roll out Russ next week? I think they will. Look, he's pushing the envelope, right? They'll have a fight on their hands if they don't. But it's going to be a medical issue. The fact that he was already passing footballs the day he got the pin out of his finger tells you where he's at. It is interesting. I mean, he's got a good team of people that work with him. He spends a lot of money on himself to get himself ready to play. So I hope he's truly good when he comes back to, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail if he's really pushing it. And but also hopefully those cooler heads say, wow, he's really doing fine. He's really working hard at this, and let's go. But there is some healing of, open wounds and things like that, or, the surgical repair where they pull the pin out. That's got to heal up sufficiently. I don't think they want to compromise that. All right. Looks like we've plumbed the depths here. I want to thank everyone for showing up as always. This is the weekly thing. I do it every Saturday at noon p.m. Eastern time. Is that p.m. or a.m.? Noon. It's just noon. That'll be an hour different time next week, even though it's really just noon still. The time changes tomorrow. I get an extra hour of sleep. I'm very happy. Scott wants to know, do you foresee Love getting 2 starts with Rodgers not being cleared to return until next Saturday? I think maybe some of that depends on this week's game, right? If Love acquits himself well in a great matchup, they got the Seahawks. I think it's that next game, and that's a pretty great matchup. So I think it's possible we could actually see him 2 weeks because that's it. And if you're not aware, the timing for Rodgers puts him back. He can't be cleared until Saturday at the earliest next week. So can't practice all week, all those things. Very interesting situation. Thank you, JR. Thank you, M. Taryn. Appreciate it. Appreciate you too, Rick. Appreciate you as well, Scott. Appreciate the questions from everybody. And I hope thank you, Dominic. Really appreciate you showing up. Again, do this every noon, every Saturday. Also, later tonight, you'll see the Line of Scrimmage Cash Game Show with John Lobb. We do usually on Wednesdays the Jamie and Jason show, set lineups. They did it last night. You can watch that on the channel. The video is up as well. So check everything out and have a great week. Win some games, win some money, and have a great time. Jets wide receivers the rest of season. Like Corey Davis for me, but if you're asking me to rank him, it's Davis, Crowder, maybe Elijah Moore is starting to get a little run. I'm hoping it's not dependent on the non-starting quarterbacks that are playing, but it might be. So would like to see a little more evidence. His role started with Mike White and kind of carried over into Josh Johnson. So would like to see what he does with Zach Wilson. Hoping Zach Wilson has learned a lot from watching what Mike White has done and what Josh Johnson did. And maybe just learn in general. Sometimes it helps to step back and kind of get a feel for where you're at. Anyhow, that's it for this week. Thanks, everyone, once again. FootballDiehards.com is the website. Go there. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button if you like this. Or if you didn't, hit the unlike button. Either way, the algorithm loves it. Thank you. Have a good week, everybody. See you next Saturday.